I am wishing you a super Sunday. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host. So welcome to Sunday, welcome to a new day, welcome to new opportunities. And I do hope that you're able to embrace them completely. I'm hoping for your sake that you've got something awesome lined up today, and if not, that you're able to just take it nice and easy, just to kind of cruise along and just make the most of an awesome opportunity just to sit back and enjoy God's creation, God's people, or just even just sit in the silence and just enjoy Him. That's not a bad thing too. I do hope though that you're having a good start to your Sunday, that things are going okay. Now, I have been covering a few different things over the last few weeks. We've taken a little bit of a step back from our normal sort of routine, if you like, which is kind of ironic because last week I spoke about routine and back to normal and, kind of making that shift if things don't go back to normal, if things look a bit different to what you planned. So that was an interesting one to sort of explore myself. Again, we've sort of explored that previously, but this was a bit of a different spin. Today, I've actually decided to go back on and sort of explore something that's very familiar to me. So I've tried to stay away from as much as I can the sort of counselling world, but it sort of feels like it's an okay time to introduce the stuff that I've worked on before. So the next few weeks we might be spending a bit of time on this particular subject, but from different perspectives. So it's because it's familiar, because it's in my world and it's what I've always explored with other people. I just thought, hey, why not bring it to radio? Let's do something along the lines of what I've done in terms of my workplace and what feels comfortable for me, because it's kind of second nature. So today we're going to be exploring getting to know you, who you are. And we're just sort of surface level stuff, but we're talking introduction and we're just sort of just working on it from, just kind of looking at all the different elements or sort of, I say theories, but they're not necessarily theories. They're just ideas, if you like, about how we evolve, how we become who we are supposed to be, who God designed us to be, and whether we can see God through those theories at different times. So I'm just going to start with a bit of a prayer actually for this morning, because it is a big one, and certainly we can't put it and condense it down to a few weeks because every one of us are just so uniquely formed. So certainly remind yourself that there's theories out there. It doesn't mean they're necessarily accurate, but they're ideas, they're theories, they're things to explore. And the more we learn about ourselves, the more we learn about how we can serve God, how we can serve others, how we can push past the limits that we have on ourselves and the strengths, the weaknesses that we possess. Because those things, they alter so much of our perception of ourselves and our world, and they can alter and play so firmly in how we give, how we demonstrate God's love, how we embrace moments. It's really intriguing and really interesting to understand ourselves in the way of looking at and comprehending how that impacts how we relate to and communicate with other people and situations. So that's sort of where we're going this morning. I'm going to be throwing a few things out there. We, as I said, will just be exploring from a surface level of the sorts of things that do impact us and help us to change or to grow. But we're going to get stuck into that shortly. I'm going to just leave it there. And I just thought just a little bit of an introduction to where we're going today. All right, I'm going to leave it there. And I will see you guys in, probably about half an hour-ish. So I'll be back soon. All right, enjoy this song and I'll see you guys soon. A big welcome back to you guys. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host here at Rhema CC. And what can I say? It is an absolute joy to spend some time with you each Sunday morning. Thank you for having me or putting up with me. Maybe it's the second one. I'd have to probably say that's probably more the case. But thank you for being part of our life here at Rhema CC. Thanks for including us in your day. And I just hope and pray that your Sunday is in fact fantastic. I love the team that we've got here. I think we're so fortunate enough to have such awesome volunteers that come in and help each week, whether that's through radio announcing, whether it's doing stuff behind the scenes, whether it's people on, doing the admin stuff, the techie stuff. I'm terrible with that. So it is so encouraging just to have people put their hand up and say, hey, I'm in, I want to help out. Let me know what I can do to keep this thing afloat. So yeah, I certainly take my hat off to Rick and Leanne and just say thank you to them for just dreaming this place up and putting themselves out there week after week and just getting behind through prayer and just really just examining where God's taking Rhema CC. I know back in November we were doing a lot of the seed sort of stuff and exploring different ideas for what the seed was to look like, how we reach the community as best as we possibly can. And yeah, it's the people like Rick and Eben, and you've just got so many people behind the scenes that are just doing things constantly. That's what I think is awesome about organisations, is there are so many people behind the scenes that they just give, and there's no need for acknowledgement necessarily, but it certainly should be something that we should say thank you to those who do stuff for us, who serve us in ways like that. Yeah, it just takes a word of thanks sometimes, doesn't it? Just to say, hey, I really appreciate you. And that's often enough, I think. Even if you think for yourself, it's just that gentle reminder that what you contribute is really being valued. Which leads us into a little bit of today. So I had said previously in our previous segment that I decided today to work on exploring, just that element of us getting to know who we are. Who am I designed to be in this world? Because I think a lot of us just float through the world not knowing who we're supposed to be. And sometimes it's relevant to not even think about it. Sometimes it's just relevant just to go with it. And sometimes it's really important to know who we are. Knowing our values, what are our goals, what are our ethics, what are all those things that make us who we are. There's obviously elements to us becoming who we're supposed to be, and we often don't think about how we get to where we are. But I just want to explore that a little bit, because sometimes if we understand ourselves better, we understand the world that we live in better, and that impacts our relationships with other people. It impacts our relationships in the workplace. It impacts how we interact with children, with animals, with nature. It impacts our understanding of relationships. It impacts, just so much in how we do life, because we understand how we got to where we are in ourselves. So certainly there is that element of our, if we think nature versus nurture stuff, there's always that, and that's something to be thinking about constantly. I don't know how scary you guys find it, but I often find myself saying things exactly as my mum would say, and I think, oh my goodness, I've become her. I don't know if I should say it's a great thing or a not so great thing. In a lot of ways, it's fantastic, and in other ways, I've always tried to be my own person. So, yeah, it's one of those things that you just go, where did I get that from? Did I just hear that enough times as a kid to have that almost infiltrated into who I've become and the way I do things as a parent or work with other people? Sometimes I look at my hands and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can see my dad's hands there. So physically, we carry stuff along with us where you see traits of yourself and you think, oh, there's my mum, there's my dad, there's my whoever. And yeah, that carries over to personality. I'm a lot more like my dad, I would say, in a lot of ways. I think I get overstimulated by being in a lot of places. I'm actually I'm a quieter person. If you actually sit down and get to know me, I can sit here and talk to you guys and it's not an issue at all. I can stand up in front of church, I can lead, I can do things like that out in the public, but in terms of me as a person, I'm actually a very reserved person. So it's looking at those things in ourselves and wondering why we are the way that we are, because sometimes there's these conflicts and you kind of go, how does that work? But by getting to know those elements of yourself, the way that God intends us to be, we're able to fine tune and just work out how God wants to use them. And yeah, that is a lot of more of a head sort of response rather than a heart sort of response. There is a lot of that in it. But it is so important for us to use both, because God did give us a brain. He did give us that ability to process things from a logical perspective as well as an emotional perspective and angle. So it's finding that balance, I think, but getting to know who you are. Again, the nature versus nurture stuff, it's incredible. I would say that the way that I relate to children, I have always said it's definitely not a natural thing for me. I have learned a lot of the stuff that I do with my own children and their friends and children in the big broader world. I'd have to say comes a lot from my mum, because she's such a natural person when it comes to children. She's so she's just this delight. She just lights up. And so I would mirror what she was showing me. That nature versus nurture stuff flows through, where you just go, oh, okay, I would not have come up with this stuff by myself. I have no idea myself how to do this, but by watching her and how she has taught me to relate to other people, particularly children, those things are just, they become a way of me doing things. And we all have that. We look at the people in our life and we think, when we're able to process it, we're able to see how that has impacted us. If you look at teens and just the relevance of the environment that they're put in as teenagers, we look at our own teen years, and same thing. The decisions that were made, the actions that were taken, those sorts of things we can look back on and go, I can see how the environment, that nurturing, or the external stuff, the environment of what we're placed in can impact on who we are in that moment, but also long term, who we become. So it's kind of cool to process. It's kind of cool to think about. Certainly a lot in it, and I can't go into a whole lot of it today, but it's nice to sort of get those thinking, just get the wheels spinning a little bit and just think, how did I turn out, or how am I turning out the way that I am? And then as a parent, if you're a parent, how are my kids turning out? What things can we impact or change based on that? What can we do to sort of jolt things a little bit and make things different if things aren't going well? And what can we nurture to support if things are going well? If they're still going great, then what can we get behind and encourage, with the understanding that ultimately there is still that impact, so that element of nature versus nurture. So whoever those children are supposed to be, obviously prayerfully we just keep placing those kiddos in front of God and just saying, all right, God, you find out who they are, and you keep drawing them out, and show us as parents how to do that too. So it's kind of cool. But we've got more to explore soon. So I'll be back shortly. Enjoy, and I'll see you guys soon. Well, a big welcome back to you guys. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host here at Rhema CC. So welcome. It's awesome to have you guys. As I said earlier on, there is always something to be hopeful for. So I hope that you are feeling hopeful today. It's going to be a good one. I'm sure. I'm counting on it. Stay hopeful anyway. Now today we've been talking about, kind of just getting to know ourselves. And that sounds a little bit silly, but it's so relevant to know who we are in the world. And that sounds a little bit maybe generational. It's kind of one of those things where we go, I've got to know myself in the world and, know my truth. And we hear those sort of things just tossed out there. But I think it's really important to actually see it as valuable to know who you are in the world. Not as a way of minimizing the value of God or minimizing the value of others, but to know your own values and your own ethics, your own morals. It's so important to know that stuff and be aware of how you might be using that down the track, or even in the moment, because, I don't know what your life is like at the moment, but there have been times where I've stepped aside out of professional angles because ethically and morally I've gone, no, I can't align with this. This is heading down a track that I don't want to be a part of. And I have done that. And that comes down to me understanding my values and where I stand on things. My value and my number one priority is following what I believe God is calling of me. That's my number one priority. Not everyone is where I am. And that's totally cool. That's between them and God. That's between them and their families, their spouse, whoever. That's between them and God more than anything, though. And part of that may actually just be down to the awareness of not knowing who they are or what they value yet. Obviously, this is just a very surface thing on radio, but I just thought it's really important to draw attention to it, because the more we know about ourselves, the more that we can make educated choices, and we can be driven more by that balance between logic and emotion. And it really is so important to balance it. I think I've said before that I am someone who by nature was always driven by emotion. I just, from the time I was tiny, I wanted to be a counsellor. I was just driven by the emotion about dealing with the things that went wrong in life. It was just kind of just built in me. I don't really know how to explain it any other way, but that's just how it was. I actually told my mum when I was in year 3 that I wanted to be a counsellor. And I still to this day don't even know how I knew what a counsellor was. But yeah, anyway. I think by knowing who you are, you can learn to balance the emotion and the logic. So for myself, when I talk about that specifically, I'm just saying I was always someone who was driven to emotion. And over recent years, I've learned to just integrate more of the logic. There is this beautiful balance. We do need to take in and appreciate the logical thinkers that are in our world, because they have so much to contribute too, but we also have the need to embrace those who are emotionally engaged, because they can they can allow us to really explore situations from a different perspective. So we need each other, and we need to know who we are in that. So don't ever underestimate who you are, I think is where I'm going with this. Don't ever question who you are, because regardless of who you are, you've got something to contribute. And I think that is just the awesome thing about God. You look at the whole understanding of the church being the body, and we all just need each other. Every part has something to play. We just need each other. We need the little fingers, we need the ears, we need the nose, we need the little toes even. We need the parts that make us one body. But we've got to know who we are to be able to apply that. So I don't even know what I am, if I'm being quite honestly. If I think of the body itself, I don't know where I fit. I'm not sure. But I know that there's elements of myself that God has shown me that He's brought me back to and said, you know what, you can do this. This stuff over here you're not so great at. There's still things we need to work on there. There's skills to develop, but there's things that you can do in this way. So if you can, start using that, then that's actually going to help as, supporting the rest of your body, your church body. Isn't that cool to think that God thinks that we can contribute something? I think that's pretty awesome when you think of it. But yeah, definitely it's so important for us to get to know who we are. So I'm just going to encourage you to, over the next few weeks, if you happen to be tuning in on Sunday morning, this is the sort of thing we're going to be exploring. We're going to look at different theories more intently, not too deeply, but a little bit more intently, and just explore different ideas of how we become who we're supposed to be. Nature versus nurture was kind of the starting point for this morning. It's certainly something to consider. We do have that need to understand that there are things that we just do just because that's part of our nature, and there are things that we do because they are mirrored to us. But that's just the starting point. There's plenty more to get into. All right, guys, I'll be back shortly and I will examine this stuff even more. We'll dig a little bit deeper. All right, see you soon. Good morning, Central Coast, and a huge welcome back to you guys from us here at Rhema CC. I am Lindy Jones. I'm your Sunday morning host, and I am loving being your Sunday morning host. So thank you for having me, or should I say put up with me. Sorry that you have to hear me, but maybe I shouldn't go that far. But anyway, we'll just see how we go. So this morning we are talking getting to know who you are. And I think I can probably see a few eyes rolling at the thought of that, like, seriously? There is a reason, and I promise you, if you just stick with me, I can explain where we're going with this stuff. I think it's so important for us to know who we are, and not because, we live in a world that's all about me and what I want and my expression of things, because we do live in that kind of world. We are in this world that we think that we should be heard all the time and everybody should stop. It's almost a generational or a cultural, sort of westernized cultural thing. And it's integrated. It is a part of who we've become as a people. I listened to something recently actually talking, and I did an assessment that was oddly very similar to what I was listening to it. I think it actually came on the radio. But a gentleman was talking about, culture. He lives in, I think it was Fiji actually. And he was talking as a missionary over there, and he was talking about how it's a lot more, about collectivism. So it's a lot more about we as a society rather than I. And I don't think we notice that. I don't think we realize that there are different ways of doing things. I think our westernized ways are very much how we do it, like this, and it's about me and how I feel and how I see things. And we forget often that there's other people that are impacted through that. So to come back to getting to know who you are, if we're just exploring that a bit today, it's certainly part of it to be thinking about who we are in terms of our cultural exploration, because culture does impact who we become. And I'm going to get into that in a few weeks' time, so I will dig a little bit deeper in that one. But I just wanted to put it out there that culture, these are things that certainly impact how we see the world and how we understand what is important. In our culture, we tend to think about our own interests rather than what is the interest of us as a human race. How do we look after each other? Which I think is actually quite sad, but that's a side note. There's certainly elements that we could change in the way that we do things. But if we're going back to that question of getting to know who you are, getting to know who we are, there is that understanding that culture is going to impact that. Things like birth order are things that we're going to explore next week as well, because birth order is, it's another theory that we kind of look at, and you can certainly see elements of who we become through our family dynamics as we are raised, as we are, shown and introduced to the world and how things run because of where we fit in the family. And I know for myself, there are certainly things that as a firstborn I can kind of look at and go, oh yeah, that would be me. There are things that I can laugh at and think, well, that's not anything like it, but theoretically it looks like that's what I should be because I'm the firstborn. But yeah, there's also elements of social impact, the environmental stuff, and we sort of explored that previously. The environments that we place ourselves in, how does it impact our mood, how we perceive things, how does it impact our understanding of morals and ethics and the things that we value, social etiquette. All those things are little pieces along the way that we can take on board, and piece by piece they impact who we become as people. There's just so many elements, but I think more than anything we just have to remember that God uniquely and perfectly designed each of us as individuals, and we've just got to embrace that and just pray for the chipping away, the stuff that we're not supposed to be, and that's hard. That is really, really hard. There is no denying on my part that is hard when you're allowing God to step in and go, I've got to do some work here, so just step aside, let me do some stuff in you. I've got to find who you are again, because somewhere along the way you've managed to, cover yourself up and I can't see you anymore. But there's some serious power in it. So if you're in a position at the moment where you don't even know who you are, I just want to encourage you to just hold on, embrace the road and the bumpiness and the journey that's ahead, because it will get uncomfortable. But getting back to know who God designed you to be, it's just the most purifying experience. It's really cool. Just to let him do his thing, even though it's uncomfortable. And as if we want to use a bit of a cliche, not really cliche, but you think of the butterfly, and I'm sure you guys probably seen that email that floats around every so often, every few years, the transitioning, the need to go into the cocoon, to sit there and allow yourself to be wrapped up in, just that, the tightness of the situation and how uncomfortable it is. And that only recently actually I saw there is another email that's just been floating around not that long ago, but they were talking about the struggle that the butterfly actually has when he or she is trying to emerge. And it's the wings, the development of the wings. They don't just sit there. They are just constantly just pushing and pushing and pushing against this cocoon until eventually they can start to break free. That's the emerging that God does in our lives when we allow him to really transform us and getting to know or see the direction that he wants us to take as people. That transformation is a beautiful process. It's uncomfortable, but it's beautiful. So hold firm if you're in it. It's coming. You're about to be released. And my goodness, the world is going to be better for it. There is so much hope. Hope, hope, hope. So cling to it and enjoy the process as much as you possibly can. I'm going to leave it there. I'll be back. Well, a big good morning to you guys. If you just happen to be joining us this morning, I am Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host. I'm just popping back in for a few minutes just to kind of wind things up from this morning. We've been chatting about getting to know who we are supposed to be as God's people, as individuals, obviously, but also getting to know us, where we are right now, getting to know ourselves and exploring that from the perspective of understanding that to know ourselves, we can know what we can contribute to God's family. And that's a really cool thing. We often forget the importance of understanding our own ability to contribute. We sort of underestimate what we can contribute to the church, to society, to, just the world, if you like. I know we're all kind of in that I'm a game changer, I'm going to be the savior of the world sort of period of time. Everyone wants to strive for that. God's the only way that things are going to change, and that's the reality of it. He really is the ultimate game changer. So as much as we like to put ourselves out there and think, yeah, we are the heroes, when it comes down to it, he's going to override all of that. But it is just so encouraging to know that he thinks that, and he sees that we have value, we've got something to offer. But we've got to know what that is. We've got to know what that is so that we can actually offer that. And that's where we've been exploring today. We've been looking at who we are, whether it's impacted through environment, whether it's impacted through, just the whole nature versus nurture theme. There's a lot of things to consider and think about, but it'll be interesting for you guys to sit down and sort of think about who you've become, how you've become the way you have. I know as a teenager and as a younger little munchkin, when I was a kid myself, I used to hear, oh, you're such and such, like, right now you're acting like this person. Right now you look like this person. I'd hear those comments between my parents, and I'm like, what? But there really is elements of, those things that are just, you can't help but see that nature sort of stuff popping out. And there are times where you can't help but see those nurture things come out where you think, oh, that's what they used to say. That's how they used to respond. All those sorts of thoughts and those sorts of things. Certainly interesting to explore. Now, next week we're going to explore birth order a little bit more, in a bit more detail. It's quite humorous. It's quite enjoyable to look at it from a theoretical perspective and just work out how we become the way that we do based on just the time of when we were born and when we were introduced into the world. So where we fit in our families. And as a firstborn, I can just take a moment here and just say I'm just such an overachiever. Maybe not, but anyway, it's good to kind of humor the theories and just go from there. But I will see you guys next week. I do hope you have an awesome Sunday and that you are able to enjoy church, whether that's your own local church. If you're up here on holidays, I hope you're able to just spend some time finding a church in the area that it's a good fit for you, or just good to visit. But if not, again, church on the radio isn't at 10 o'clock, so I hope you guys can join in for that. So I will see you next week, and we're going to talk birth order. All right, see you then, guys. Have an awesome one.